I am back over to my computer, and inside of the basics here, I want you to make a new file, and we're going to call it loops.py. Okay, this is going to be our playground where we work on loops, and we'll make a note here. We'll say a loop is a way to run the same code over and over and stop when X happens or when we have done it X times. Okay, those were the two syntaxes I talked about. Let's start with the while syntax. Okay, we'll make a variable here, and let's make a counter. Okay, so we'll make a counter variable, and we'll start it off at 0. Okay, this is just we're going to just increment the counter. We're gonna add 1 to it over and over and over. All right, and we're going to say while the counter is less than 10. We have that colon, meaning we're ready to move into our block of code, just like we had seen on the board. Well, inside here, let's print off counter. So we use a print statement like that. And then we're going to do counter equals counter plus 1. And then let's print outside, right? Remember, the block of code is based on the indentation. So this starts, right? This says, hey, this is the code that I want you to iterate over, or I want you to run again and again. We've got the 2 tabs here. So do this. Do this. Oh, the indentation has stopped. Come back up to the top. When we get to this print statement, we're going to say loop has ended, exclamation point. Okay? This is pretty straightforward, but let's talk through it again. The counter is going to start off at 0. We want to keep running until something happens, right? Until we run out of dishes, okay? In this case, it's until the counter has gotten big enough for us to stop, meaning the counter is bigger than 10. So while the counter is less than 10, run. What do? Well, we print off counter. So the first time through, it's going to be 0. And then we're going to update it to where it's 1. Okay, it's going to go back to the top. It's going to check, is the counter less than 10? Well, the counter will be 1, and that's true. So it's going to print off 1. It's going to bump counter up to 2. It's going to get back up to the top. Counter is now 2. Is 2 less than 10? It is. Keep going, until eventually it gets to 10. 10 is not less than 10, which means that this code is no longer going to run, and it's going to hit this line number 9. Okay, let's run it and see what happens. Make sure that you are inside the basics folder. I'm going to run Python 3 against loops.py, and it does exactly that. It printed off counter, right? It kept printing it off, printing it off, printing it off. It got to that point where 10 was no longer less than 10, and it came to an end. Okay? Now, this is a silly example, of course, right? This is a way to run the code 10 times. We're going to get to the point, though, where we have lots and lots of good use cases for the while loop. The while loop is really, really dangerous. And let me say this up front, because you are going to do this. I still do this, unfortunately. You'll be in a situation where if you comment out line 8, and I'm not saying that you should, if you do, be ready for what will happen, because if you save this and run this like this, there is no way to ever get out of this loop. You have a while counter is less than 10, print it off. It's going to print and print and print and print and print and print and keep checking, but there's no way for counter to ever change inside of this loop, so we cannot exit it. This is what's known as an infinite loop, and because your computer can do billions of things a second, every second this runs, your memory is getting overrun with an endless supply of requests to keep doing something, and it has absolutely no way out, okay? So this line is incredibly important. You will create an infinite loop at some point. You will probably create lots of them. It's okay. You can laugh about it when it finally happens, but you may have to restart your computer or your browser or whatever the case is. But this is one syntax that we have, okay? So let's put up at the top here, a while loop goes until X is not true. The X is the part that's inside of the parentheses, okay? So we got that command, just like our ifs, just like our prints and so on. We've got parentheses, and whatever's inside of that is what's getting evaluated. The other way, and I'm going to comment out our print statement here because we don't need that to clutter up the console. The other way is a for loop, okay? And a for loop is used to iterate over something. We don't have a variable type yet to do that. We will very shortly. But I'm going to show you something that we have not used yet. There is a command called range, and you can see it changed colors, meaning hey, something special here, right? This is a Python keyword. and we put parentheses next to it, just like we have most of our commands, the while, the if, the print, and we send it two things. We put two things in there. They're separated by a comma. I'm going to put 0, 10. And what range does, it essentially creates the numbers 0 through 10, just like what we did up here. We have a counter that we started with 0, and then we bump it up by 1 each time through. Range is going to do the same thing. It's going to start with 0. It's going to make all of the numbers up until, but not including, 10. Okay? And the way we write a for loop, we start with the keyword for. It turned pink, right? Special word. And then we say I in range, and then we put a colon at the end. Okay, let's break this down. Let's go with our dirty dishes example. For I is the thing that you are on. So the range is all of the dirty dishes in the sink. Dirty dishes in sink. That's what we're going to call this. Let's go ahead and put that in here. Range 0, 10 equals the 10 dirty dishes in the sink. Okay, so that's thing 1. Right above that, I equals the dish you are on. Okay, so it is a fork, right? I as a fork, right? Go through again, right? You still have all the dirty dishes, but you grab another one, and now you have a cup. You grab another one, now you have a plate. So I is the thing that we are on in the dirty dishes in the sink. Okay, so if we print off I, what we will see is, again, we're looping through all of the dishes in the sink. We are on this one in that collection of stuff. So we come back over, going to run the code again. We got loop has ended. That's what we had back up here because I commented out the counter. This line ran, and then we got 0 through 9. And like I said, 10 is not included because 10 is the point at which it stops. So these two loops do essentially the same thing. This is going to keep going until this thing is true, or rather not true, I guess. It's going to keep going while it's true. Down here, we're telling it, I want you to run from this number and stop when you get to this number and do this. Okay? So I could put in here an if statement, and let's just say if I equals the number 5. Let's print off 5, the text 5, and then we'll have an else statement here. Otherwise, just print I, like literally the thing that we're on, the number itself, the integer. So if I save this and we come back over and I run it, that's exactly what happens, right? You cannot even fathom how fast it happened because your computer can run loops so fast. Okay?